Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Elisa Maria Designs. Welcome back if you are back, and welcome to those of you that are new joining us. Let me know in the comments below. Was it for the canvas? Was it for the book? I can tell you that I barely slept last night. I am so excited to start Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And today we are going to do the kit up of Quiet Snow. Get ready for our diamond painting sessions and reading sessions. I have my journal. I have my sticker sheet. I got a little jump start yesterday getting the trays ready. This is 56 colors, and I believe I have close to 60, so we're good there. As I am kitting up, I'm going to tell you about the author, about Daphne du Maurier, tell you about the story of Rebecca, tell you a little bit about Daphne, what I know. So much. We're so lucky to still have video and interviews of Daphne and, typing on her little typewriter, her wonderful stories. And why do we keep coming back to Rebecca? Let's get started. Here are our beautiful drills for Quiet Snow. And like I said, I have about 50, I think there's 59 colors in here. And I have a nice mix of large and small, which is going to make this very easy. Let's get this show on the road, shall we? I have my sticker sheet. I did a little cheating yesterday. I also did not take the old labels off. I just like, who's got time for this? I don't have time for this. So there's gonna be some, I'm taking all the breaks that I can, all the shortcuts that I can. So I did an unboxing of this. I should link it below. I did open this already, and then, I put her away. Didn't know when I was going to use her. I will say I went on a lookout for this canvas. I went to see, did anyone complete her? And there was one person on the Dreamer Design site that did complete her and said that the picture does no justice. This is the toolkit. The picture does no justice, that the sparkle on this canvas is incredible. I took a picture of it because they don't even allow you to blow it up. I took a picture of it and tried to look at it as best as I could. I couldn't see what she was talking about, so just gonna have to go on her word. Now, there is only one AB in this entire kit, so I would say that with the amount of white ABs that are going throughout this, I could just imagine that this is going to be a beautiful, snowy, icy, bluish, that it's a nighttime scene. There's stars in the sky. Her hair has all the ABs in it. Her coat. This sweet little animal over here. Come on, you. This sweet little goat that she's holding. I'm calling him a goat because he looks like a goat. Where is he? There he is. Is he not the most adorable thing? And I also looked at the completed version and I said, here's all the ABs that are in here. And so this big container, usually I reserve it for black. I think it's going to be holding this. But let me see here. This is 823. Yeah, there's really no black in here. So this container is going to be holding all my AB08s. Oh, wait, there's two different. This is 5200. This is AB08, four of them. All right, okay. We're going to get started here. In fact, I want to get started with that one. I'm glad I left my big scissors out last night. So what else did I do this weekend? Well, I completed a canvas that I was not too happy with. I'm sure you guys saw it. I did watch over the weekend an interview with, forgive me if I keep calling Daphne Rebecca. Rebecca just gets in your brain and you just can't let her go. I'm even calling the canvas Rebecca. But it was, I think maybe it was a British interview that she was doing, and the reporter that came to her home, and I believe her home was Menabilly, not Mandalay, but Menabilly. I'm going to put pictures up too. I was able to find pictures in the public domain of where she lived. And, you know, you have to think that when a author is writing, they're writing from either imagination, experience, but either way, it's just part of their soul that they are relating to you. And Menabilly was her home, and it was also the backdrop for Manderley. Now, Manderley in the movie, of course, was like this big Gothic mansion. Menabilly was big. I didn't really look at pictures inside Menabilly, but there were photographs outside of her, you know, spacious lawns, and I believe that it was in Cornwall, which she just, you know, there are places that are just so near and dear to us that become a part of our world that you know, we just can't forget. You know, I'm born and raised in Philadelphia. Never felt that I really lived and breathed in Philadelphia, even though I've been here most of my life. There are other places in the world that I have been that I'm like, this is my home. This is where I belong. I don't belong in Philadelphia. I still kind of feel that way. When I moved out to Sarasota, I felt like this is my home. Not Sarasota per se, even though I loved it. And I loved it before it was like, it was anything. Like, I was out in Sarasota before it had the building explosion of, you know, just constantly building off the water and building and building and building. Before all that came to fruition, I absolutely loved being in Florida every day. So anyway, she fell in love with Cornwall. And the reporter that was doing this interview, I'm trying to think of words. I can't have any coffee right now because I have to go get a blood test, so bear with me. So I was curious. So the reporter is going around her home, and she's typing on this little typewriter. You'll see it. And the reporter goes into the back where she's got all her manuscripts, and they're in these big, you know, just taking this binder off the shelf. He looked like he was going to have a hernia. And then she had a box, and she had all letters in there, and that was part of the manuscript for Rebecca. And he wanted to talk about Rebecca. She's written all these. If you didn't know, she also wrote The Birds, and Hitchcock did that movie also. He did Rebecca, and he did The Birds. But she's written other works that she loves so much more than Rebecca. And at one point, she was like, Rebecca was a phase. And I'm like, oh my God, we keep returning. Even the first, I believe it's the first line. It's been a while. And I'm so curious, like, how the movie is going to weigh against the book after Jaws. Nothing would surprise me. Totally different than what we saw on the screen. But she's going through this binder, and she says, you know, Rebecca was just a phase. And I'm like, oh, there's something there. And that's when I went on the hunt to find out what was the inspiration for Rebecca. Where can we start? Because there's a there. And he wanted to talk about Rebecca. Everybody always wants to talk about Rebecca. And I think that it's just, you might not be in a situation where you're the second Mrs. De Winter and you're living into the shadow of your present husband's first wife. I've certainly seen situations in my own life where this goes on. But you might be standing in a shadow somewhere else. You might be standing in the shadow of at a job where somebody just does something better than you do, and you're constantly looking over your shoulder and you're comparing yourself to what they are. This goes on even on the internet today. People comparing themselves to someone who they actually believe, you know, doesn't have help getting them. And this was part of my talk yesterday on Self-Care Sunday. Doesn't get them ready for their, you know, you're always standing on the mark. You know, you're always in the shot. Your makeup is always perfect, your hair, whatever. It's not real life. So let's talk about where the inspiration for Rebecca came from. And there are, I'm going to not try and put everything that I know into one recording, because her life is so rich and so layered. I mean, unbelievable. Wait until you see the pictures. Let me turn this around, get you here. So quiet. Last day of jury, well, closing arguments are happening today with my husband for jury duty. But anyway, Daphne's own jealousy sparked the plot for Rebecca. So in 1932, Daphne du Maurier married a lieutenant, and his nickname was Boy. His name was Frederick Browning. His nickname was Boy. Are these two the same? Okay. And he was a very dashing British officer, army officer, and he was from an upper class family. And after their marriage, Daphne discovered that Boy, I can't even believe this was his name, Boy was passionately in love with another woman before her, and her name was Jan Ricardo, okay? And she was a glamorous socialite, very polished young woman, and she was from London's high society, if I recall. Yes, she was from London's high society. And I'm trying to make sure I'm not going to be getting all the packages that I need into one jar. Okay, so du Maurier was haunted by this woman. You know, I mean, you get married and you find out that this previous woman before you was, you know, beautiful and confident and everything that du Maurier felt that she was not, unfortunately. In her private letters and journals, and I wonder now if that's what was in the box, in her private letters and journals, she confessed that she felt constantly compared to Jan and couldn't stop imagining that her husband still carried her memory. The emotion became the seed for Rebecca. When I read about Jan Ricardo, I remember her saying that even this is what Daphne actually said verbatim, that she was the second wife, and I always knew that my husband had loved before, and she haunted both of us. Even the detail of the signature R, the Ricardo, embroidered around Menabilly, came from Jan Ricardo's real life habit of signing her letters with a dramatic looping R. So when I went looking for this book, now there were plenty of them, and they all had different dust jackets, but I wanted this one because I remember from the movie that the monogram, the R, it wasn't enough that she haunted the halls of Menabilly. She was everywhere. I don't know if this is going to come up, but I wanted the R in the background. That's what I wanted. And I thought this had an embroidery to it. No, it doesn't. That was probably another book. But it was more important to me that I have the R in the book. So Daphne's the second wife, and she's feeling overshadowed by the first wife. Let's get this little 5200 here. And she's, you know, has this invisible comparison between who I am and who was she. Oh my God, that's enough to haunt any woman. And the husband, and she has a husband that never speaks of his past. I mean, after their marriage, she discovered about this woman, Jan, who he had been so passionately in love with. You're not only just living in the shadow. I don't know what happened to Jan. Maybe I'll find this out later on. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know if he just didn't marry her. She seemed to be a very glamorous socialite in London. You know, maybe it was just too much for him. Maybe she was just out living her life. Maybe she didn't want to marry and settle down. Who knows? I don't know what happened to Jan. I don't know if he did marry her. I don't think he did. I think that she would have known. I don't think that she would have found out after he was married that he was married before. But it wasn't until after he was married that she found out about this woman. And then, you know, your curiosity of, you know, if you find yourself, I thought that Daphne was a very beautiful woman. Absolutely, a very beautiful woman. And you know, if she had this insecurity of not knowing who this other woman was, and you're just haunted by like, what did he see in her? Why her? You know, like you go through those things as women, you go through those things in your mind. It's terrible. It really is terrible what we do to ourselves. Here. I almost thought it was the on the dust cover. Okay. No. Maybe I did read it. Is there a dedication on here also? Yes, last night I dreamt I went to Mandalay again. That's the first line. And that's what we keep doing. We keep returning back to Mandalay. I took a few seconds to get all these little packages in order from 1 to 56. And let me tell you, there are like very many bags of color. I did look at this canvas. I told you someone had posted a picture. And there wasn't really, you know, a lot of information, but I kind of studied the canvas and which direction it goes in. And when I section this off in washi tape, I'll show you what I mean. You know, a little bit about Kurtis here is that he really does put a lot of attention to detail when it comes to what his little damsels are wearing. As you can see how elaborate this is. So I was looking at, there is a lot going through her hair, a lot. And then there's a lot going on in her dress. So when I get to these sections, the bigger sections I'm going to do bigger, but the smaller sections are going to be really small, especially when you're talking and you're trying to, you know, keep aware of what it is that you're doing. It's a lot. It's a lot. So anyway, let's get back to, as soon as I find my scissor, where did I put it? It's as big as anything. Here we go. So let's get back to another key feature of like another major source of inspiration was Daphne's real home in Cornwall. It was called Menabilly, and it was hidden between these overgrown rhododendrons, and it was perched above the sea, if you can imagine. And, you know, if and when you see the movie, you'll see that Mandalay is the same way. Like I said, big source of information, big source of inspiration for Mandalay was Menabilly. And Daphne had discovered this home years before writing Rebecca. She loved, when she went to Cornish, she fell in love with it. And I think that her first trip there was when she was 19. And, you know, I guess walking in the countrysides, and she fell in love with the place. Sometimes you just know, this is where I want to be. And it was abandoned for some time, if I remember. Like the windows were shuttered, but she fell in love with it instantly. And she would often trespass on the property to walk the grounds. She would imagine stories. You know, I do that when I do thrift shopping, and when I, you know, have something, you know, that's vintage or antique. I wonder about who it belonged to, and where it came from, who the owner was this, you know, an article that was loved, you know. And so she would wander around the grounds, and she would imagine the stories that happened. You know, they say if these walls could talk. And I always remember Maya Angelou saying that she would not allow people to, she would not allow certain language in her home. Like she wouldn't allow cursing or negative stories to be in her home, because she believed that the words stuck to the walls. And I do believe that it does create an energy in the home when you have that kind of energy, you know, living inside the home. So I could just imagine, you know, Daphne walking, you know, this Cornish countryside, this abandoned home, the overgrown rhododendrons, and wondering about, you know, like what happened here. Like we have mansions here in Philadelphia that, you know, beautiful estates. I believe that oh my gosh, what's her name? Elizabeth Gilbert. She did come here. She came here and she wrote The Signature of All Things, and it was our abandoned mansions here, I think, that she rented and actually wrote the story of The Signature of All Things. And so it was a source, it was a source of inspiration for her. And I do think, though, like, in her mind, Menabilly became Manderley, which was the fictional estate of Rebecca. And, Manderley was both a dream and a prison. It was magnificent, but yet when you have a place that's filled with secrets, the walls, no matter how big it is, can become confining. And I believe that you'll probably sense that also in the story. Or even if you decide to watch the movie, I wouldn't say don't watch the movie. I would say, do as you like. If you want to compare the story, if you want to get a better idea of the story, if you want to compare the story to the book, I wouldn't say don't read don't watch the movie. I would say, though, again, I said this yesterday, if you have read the book or seen the movie, just don't spoil it for others that are experiencing Rebecca for the first time. So what happened was when Daphne actually earned enough money from Rebecca, she rented Menabilly, and from I believe it was the Rochley family, and she restored it herself. And she lived there for more than 20 years, and she wrote some of her finest work, surrounded by the very landscape that inspired her. I think that was probably, to get a good visual on that, you could see her writing in the interview that I was telling you about with the, I believe he was British journalist. And she's sitting in Menabilly, and she's writing, and she's typing on this tiny little computer, tiny little typewriter, and she's doing this, she's writing these magnificent novels like this. Oh my gosh, I just love when you can get a glimpse into the background and into the life of whoever, the creator, the author, the painter, whomever. Here's another little fun tidbit. Menabilly was the inspiration for Manderley. I mean, I'm sure being a writer, she probably carried a traveling journal with her. But do you want to know where she wrote Rebecca? She wrote Rebecca while she was in Alexandria, Egypt. And it was from, I think it took her about a year, 1937, 1938. It took her to write Rebecca. And she was accompanying her husband, who was on a military posting. She was talking about Cornwall and this Cornish estate, So, she's longing for those moody, windswept coasts of Cornwall. And out of homesickness, she began to dream herself back home through writing. And, as you learn all these things, this is going to be a big one. As you learn all these things, it's like, is this where the first line came from? Last night I dreamt of Manderley again. Like, is that where this first line comes from? Her being homesick and her, dreaming herself back home through writing. I have a quote about that. Let me see. She once said, "I felt myself walking those paths again, down through the rhododendrons to the sea." So I believe that's probably where the first line, "Last night I dreamt of Manderley," but to turn that line into like one of the most memorable lines coming from a book. I love that. I love that. I love how, again, it's the creative process. So you guys know the way I am with all that, So we've got a big one here, number 8. There, we do have some black, 310. So I think that longing shaped the tone of Rebecca. The mist, the sea, that sense of something beautiful and unreachable. I think they all did shape the story. And I think that it was a way, the novel became a way for her, a way of her returning to Menabilly in her mind. Just a thought. She would approve of this palette. It's very moody, very blue. Down here. This is what I love about my art dot containers, is that I don't have to guess. Are you going to go in here, or do I need a bigger one? Because each one is the same size, and I just open up another container if it doesn't fit. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit 2 in here, and if should I open 2. Like, I don't go through this when I do my art dot. Another thing that I love about her writing is that she is she was very interested in, let me make sure I got the right one. Yep. She was very interested in human psychology. Who isn't? I think everybody dabbles in human psychology, especially when you are in a relationship. And this isn't even a relationship, this is a marriage. You're in a marriage where there are, or you grew up in a house of secrets. Nobody talked about anything. Everything was hidden, all this hidden emotion. I think that that's, something too. So she became deeply interested in human psychology, and of course, being interested in those hidden emotions that drive relationships, and the emotions are like guilt, repression, obsession, desire. I mean, come on. If that's not a bestseller, I don't know what is. Do you know what these containers are from? Do you know what I did kit it last night? Night's rest. Okay? All right. I'll leave you with that one. Everybody has their own way of kitting up. I feel like I find a different way of kitting up all the time. And this is nothing compared to the way that I usually kit up, because I'm, playing beat the clock and, as usual. And I have to be, somewhere at 11, and I was going to do this the way I usually do it, and then do a voiceover, and, not feel like I'm stutter stepping as much as I am, because, I haven't had a cup of coffee. I did take the cutest picture of John this morning, and of Foofy, and I was like, this is going right up on this is going up on, it's going up as a post. It has to. It is just, it's something drives you to start exploring psychology, and her fascination was how people hide truth behind manners, how a house can hold a memory, and how love can become both comforting and claustrophobic. Absolutely. I hear that one. I love my husband to death, but let me tell you, we're still trying to find our rhythm with him being retired. Getting back to Daphne, I believe that all those fascinations, absolutely, jealousy, memory, and this blurred line between reality and imagination. I mean, we do have the reality of her feeling like she's in the shadow, but you're not writing about, you're in Egypt. Can you imagine you're in Egypt with your husband, and you're writing this story about your longing for being home, and this fascination that you have with his past relationship, and the woman that he loved. All of that merged into Rebecca. I remember her saying in the interview that she described the book as a study in the relationships between 3 women. I think in the book, well, I really can't say in the book because I've never read the book. I keep saying in the book because I'm remembering the movie. But, even in the movie, those 3 women were Rebecca and the new Mrs. De Winter, but also we do have a 3rd woman. It's coming to me now, and that's Mrs. Danvers. And Mrs. Danvers ran the Menabilly household. Employee that took care of the home. Everything went through her. Everything. She was there to meet all Rebecca's desires, knew exactly how she wanted things, at her foot for everything. So she is like the other woman in this story. Aunt went to Egypt. Oh, yeah. My aunt had a restaurant, and she said, the restaurant only opened up for dinner because she would do everything homemade. And you know, you needed that time to do that work, you know, during the day. You know, it didn't just happen, you know, that you open the restaurant and, like, you know, you have things there ready. So she would do the homemade pastas and pizza. So she said, and she had a hell of a business. She had a hell of a business in Cape May, in the villas. And she said, when I turn 62, I'm retiring. And my Uncle Joe, my grandmother Rosa, her brother, said, what are you going to do? Like, you're going to retire? What are you going to do? She said, I'm retiring. I'm done. Because they had a hell of a business. You know, people waited outside for them to open during the day. And he was not willing to give it up because he figured, you know, I mean, it was a different time then. You know, they had something that was magic, you know. And she was like, no, I'm going to travel. I'm traveling. She went to Egypt. I think she went to Italy without him. He was like, I'm not going. He thought that he was going to stop her from going. My mother said he was waiting for her on the tarmac when she came home. She was only supposed to go for 2 weeks. She stayed a month. Oh boy. She was the best, Aunt Gracie. Aunt Gracie was the best. She was like everybody's favorite aunt. My father used to call her Annie Main. she was the best. So, could you imagine? Like, she's, you know, I guess, you know, you want to be where you want to be. I get that. I do get that. So you're living in Egypt and you're homesick, and it's really conjuring up all these desires and thoughts, but you're with your husband. You know, you're not alone in Egypt. You're with your husband. What's going on in Egypt? Well, maybe she was alone. Maybe he was like, with the army. So, you know, you're homesick. You're homesick for the place that you love. This is 33. This is going to be a big one. Okay. So, I think all that and her psychological curiosity about love, about, would you say, I mean, identity, absolutely identity. Is there a curiosity about power here? I think that she was creating power for Jan to have power over her with her memory, and even her husband. You know, is he eliciting power over her by not wanting to talk about this previous romance? I think that they all those threads that she weaved together go absolutely into that first line. Last night I dreamt I went to Mandalay again. How could it not? Knowing what you know now, how could it not? You know, and I'll probably never read that line the same way again because this is 2 also. I probably will never read that line the same way again because I will just think of her being in Egypt and wanting to be in Cornwall. You know, she's dreaming of this place. She's married, but she didn't. Is she married? Well, yeah, if she wrote it in Egypt with her husband, then yes, she was married. But she didn't rent Menabilly until after Rebecca. So her dream of Cornwall, it's both literal and emotional. It's a dream of returning to whatever is lingering there, you know, who lived there, or, you know, what it is that she feels as though, you know, I want to own this place one day. This is where I want to be. Well, being that I've told you everything that I know so far about Daphne du Maurier and how she wrote Rebecca, maybe I just do this quietly and leave you guys with some music. For my own brain, I have an extra 932, an extra 415, 762, 939, and 823. These are my extras, brain. These are my extras. Do I have enough room in here to, like, maybe... I don't have these organized either, and I could tell the labels are starting to stick up. Oh, God, they're starting to jump up. I put washi tape underneath, but you see how the labels are starting to peel up? I'm wondering if I could fit these in my case. Do you hear that sound? That's Foofy running down the steps. I have to put the picture up of him and John because it is hysterical. And like I said, I think closing argument is today. He found all the plastic bags on the floor. Foofy, stop eating them bags. He likes to squish the bag that the drills come in. That's what he's doing. No, Mommy's got to pick them up off the floor. Okay, guys, the kid up is done. Tomorrow we start reading Rebecca. And, yeah, the first chapter. Let's see how long the first chapter is. Let's see how many pages it is. Oh, this was... You never know. You might know who you are. I have your book. It's in good hands. Foofy. Oh, it's... What? Oh, what? Chapter 1 is 3 pages. So I think we'll be reading chapter 2 also. Because chapter 2 is only... chapter 2 starts on page 5 and it ends on page 10. 11. Are these chapters that's... Oh, they're really small. Because I was like, oh, let me see how many chapters this is. 27 chapters. No wonder why it's 27 chapters. She must have had a dream, sat down, and wrote a chapter. Okay, you guys, I will see you tomorrow. Bye. And I'll see my ravens tomorrow, too. Tomorrow's Tuesday. Yeah, tomorrow's Tuesday. Bye. No, wait. I have a live tomorrow. I see my ravens on Wednesday. This is me without coffee. I'm not kidding you. It just doesn't work. I have a live tomorrow. I do my lives on Tuesday. I will see you guys on Wednesday, my ravens. Bye. Let me get the bag away from this one.